it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today I have a tattered lace project for you. I have a Snowglobe die here that was sent to me by Tattered Lace, and they wanted me to make, obviously, a wonderful snow globe for you. So we've got in this the actual snow globe die and some extra pieces as well. So let's get going. So I've got my grand caliber here today, and I'm going to pop down the snow globe die because we need to cut out two of the snow globes, and I've got this gorgeous red holographic cardstock here, and I've got my base plate down first, my die with the cut side up. Now you could reverse this and do it the other way, it doesn't really matter. And then I've put my card with the coloured side down, and then I've actually just twisted the snow globe round because I realised it would go in sideways, so it would be a bit more economical on my paper or cardstock. And now I'm just running it through my grand caliber. Now I'm actually going to layer my snow globe. So if you're just doing a basic snow globe, then you just need to do two of the die cuts. But if you're going to do what I'm going to do, which is layer it up, then you want to do four, and you'll see exactly how that works out when you see how I put it together. So we're just running that through, and then you can see just by pulling that off, even though that was really thick and coated cardstock, it just cut through it beautifully. One cut and through it went. So now I've got my next two, and I've got this beautiful holographic cardstock. I've got two sheets of that. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at how it just wobbles. And then I've got a third piece, which is a white piece of cardstock with sort of holographic dots, which I'm not entirely sure you can catch that well on the camera, but hopefully you can, and it really is stunning. So here they are complete. We've got one in red, two in the hollow, and one in the white dotty, and don't they look fabulous? So now what we want to do is take my white dotty card, which is one of my main pieces of my snow globe, and take the circle aperture from the snow globe set and position that into the center of my already cut snow globe in my white dotty card. Now in order to hold this in position when I'm putting it through my machine, I'm just going to pop this down with a little bit of washi tape. That's just going to hold it in place. So then we're just going to pop the base plate on top. I know that sounds a bit back to front, but so I could see where I was positioning things, I actually put the cutting plate at the bottom, then my die cut snow globe, followed by my circular aperture die cut side down, and then the base plate on top. By doing it that way, you can see exactly where you're positioning your circular aperture die, whereas if you did it the other way around, you wouldn't have a clue and you wouldn't be able to put it in the right place. Okay, so just pulled that off, and as you can see, that's cut through beautifully. Now this next part, if you're not doing a layered snow globe, then you don't need to do it. But since I'm wanting to create like a matte and layer on my snow globe, I'm now cutting out my matte and layer part. So in order to make sure that that's going to be right in the right place, I need to just gently, first of all, just stick down the piece that I've already cut over the piece that I want to cut into. So in this case, I want to cut into my holographic silver, so I'm using the die cut piece that I've already done, which is my white dotty piece, in order to help me position my circular die in the correct place. Now I've used my Essential Circles die, and I'm using number 15 for this particular circle, which just gives me a small margin between the aperture and my white snow globe, and I think that just gives a really, or is going to give a really nice effect to our snow globe. But as I said, you don't have to do this part if you don't want to. If you just want to do a single layer, then just cut this white part as I've done here, and you don't need to do the holographic silver part as well, but I personally thought it would just make it look rather effective to have that extra layer there. So as you can see, I left the white piece on there when we pop that through the machine. It's not going to hurt it. We haven't done any embossing or anything, and it just saves us trying to fiddle around and re-stick it, and it ends up in the wrong place anyway, so it's just easier to leave it on there. And obviously just be careful when you peel off your washi tape. I tend to re-stick the washi tape onto my grand caliber on the machine itself, and then I've got a couple of pieces that are well used, well loved, and they have very little tack to them, so then you have less risk of them ripping your card. So as you can see, we've got our 2 layers now, and because we've positioned that so carefully with that second circle die, you can see we now have a perfect border on the inside. And the risk is, if you don't do it like that, and ask me how I know, it doesn't then fit perfectly, it doesn't match up, and you end up with some parts of the border being thicker than others, and it just doesn't work. So I think that's going to look really nice, but as I said, if you don't want to do it like that with that second layer, then you don't need to do so. Okay, so next what we want to do, just to make it easier for the folding, etc., and again, if you're only doing a single layer, then don't do this, we want to cut the tabs off the top and bottom of the 2 very outside layers. So in this case, it's going to be the very front layer matte, which is my white dotty layer on my front part of my snow globe, and then here on the back part of my snow globe, I'm going to put the red on the inside, and the holographic silver is going to be on the very back. So what I want to do again is cut the inside flap off on that, which is my red. So I'm just going to cut the top and bottom off that one as well. Okay, so the next bit of die cutting we need to do is some acetate, because I want to put a little acetate window on the front of my snow globe in the aperture there. And I've got this lovely snowfall acetate. So I've taken another one of my circle dies from the Essential Kit and just marrying it up to the actual snow globe aperture here, you can see what size is going to work. Now I've obviously got a slightly smaller aperture than if you were using just the normal snow globe, because obviously I created that extra layer, but I'm still think that the size 18 circle die will work perfectly, whether you go for the snow globe aperture that's already there or the version that I'm doing here. So that's what we're going to do next. We're just going to cut out an acetate circle. Okay, so here it is. It's exactly the same sandwich as you would normally use. However, you may want to go back and forth a couple of times, because acetate does have a habit of bending rather than cutting through. So sometimes you just need that little bit of extra help. Okay, so here we are on our last bit of die cutting for this snow globe, and we're going to be using this gorgeous sparkle glitter paper stroke cardstock. And on the snow globe kit, die kit, you have a gorgeous snowflake and a few sentiments and some little baby snowflakes. So we're going to make use of those. I'm going to use that lovely big snowflake, both the little baby snowflakes. And then I think we're going to go for Happy Christmas as our sentiment. Now, again, I wasn't too sure how this would cut out, because it was really hard, glittery cardstock. Or it was paper, but it was very glittery. So I was thinking that, a couple times through would be safer. But to be honest, it really did cut just the first time, and I was very impressed with how that worked out. And I was also really a bit naughty because I didn't stick it down at all. To be honest, on that part, really, it was sort of almost not worth it, because the glitter really would have stopped anything sticking. That said, I wouldn't recommend it because it can move, your dies can move, and if they move and cross over, that's probably the one way you can break your die, is if it goes on top of it another die that you've put in there, it will then just ruin it. So kind of do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so as you saw, I just went back and then forward, and that is it, and I was very surprised really how well it turned out. Okay, so let's just move the machine out the way, and you will see what I mean about how nicely these cut out. You can see it's just kind of stuck into the paper, and I thought, oh gosh, has it cut through? So I turned it over just to have a little look, but you can see, well, hopefully you can see that it actually has cut through, and when I pulled it away, it just came out really, really easily, and I was really impressed with the letters and everything, and not a lot of dies will do that, to be honest, with glitter cardstock, so I wasn't sure that even our amazing tattered lace would manage that. Now all I'm doing now is just giving it a good whack at the side of the table, because I find if you just give them a good tap on something like the side of your table, that it just pops out, and it really just makes it a lot easier. So as you can see, that has cut out absolutely beautifully. What a gorgeous snowflake that is. And as you can see, the rest of them popped out just beautifully, and they really are very, very nice snowflakes and sentiments. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to glue our mats together. Now, again, if you're not doing mats and layers with your snow globe, you're just doing the basic snow globe, then you don't need to do this section, obviously. This is almost now making this into the one layers, because after this everything I do will be the same as if it is a one layer, because I've stuck the two layers together. Now for this is our back piece, and for this particular one, what I want to do is have it so the holographic is on the back and the red is on the front. So I want the two wrong sides together, as it were, because I want the holographic side to show. So I'm just going to use some double-sided tape here, and I'm just going to stick the two together. Now you could use wet glue, you could use your glue pens, tape runners, whatever you want to call them, but I just thought I would use this to give it a bit of extra strength. Okay, so we're just sticking that red piece down now, and you can just see now how the tabs of the holographic piece are just sticking out there, and you can see that the die actually creates some score lines for you. So just make sure that when you fold those tabs in, just bend lightly until the score line starts to really take hold, and then you can just use your score tool to finish that off and really give it a nice sharp edge. The other thing to remember is you want to score them or bend them so they're bending towards the center or the inside of your snow globe, and that way you'll always be bending whichever side it is, you'll be bending them the correct way. So we're just doing the top and the bottom there, and those two pieces are done. Now I've got my two outside pieces, so the two front pieces. So the first thing I want to do is just glue these together. Now I decided on this one to use my tape pen because I just thought it would be a bit easier to try and go around the edge. Now obviously with these two I want it so that the right side, the holographic side, is facing upwards, because I want the holographic side to show through as my little mat, so which was the whole point really of having that second layer. Now the reason I had to have a second layer on the back as well, therefore, was in order for that balance to be correct. We want it always to be the balance to be perfect. So if you've got two layers on the front, then you want to have two layers on the back, because otherwise you won't find it will stand up. Okay, so you can see how nice that looks with that mat and layering, and then all we're going to do now is just bend those, and we're just bending them again, as I say, towards the center, just making sure that you go the right direction each time. So just bending those towards the center, and there you have your tabs all ready to go. So now we have a really fun bit. I always love doing this when we're adding in this beautiful snowfall acetate into our aperture. And for this, I'm not creating a shaker card or anything. If you wanted to do something like that, then you would need, I think, for this particular snow globe die, really to either create some sort of tab at the back to create some counterbalance, or maybe to attach it to a front of another card, maybe like an easel card or something like that. I think on its own right, it's not going to be able to, it would be too heavy at the front if you did that on its own. You could perhaps create it so that the front and back were kind of stuck together with very thick foam. That might work, but you need something where the balance is even, otherwise it just wouldn't work. If you had the shaker on the front, then it would tip over. But as I say, just doing this like this with our acetate on the front and just keeping that balance nice and even, then we'll have no problem with it standing up just as it is. And there it is now, all stood up, and you can see how all stood up, all stuck together, and you can see how gorgeous that looks against that red. So now we're going to get to the decorating part, and we're going to take those gorgeous silver sparkle dies that we cut out from that gorgeous cardstock. I really like that. And we've got the very big snowflake here. I'm using my wet glue because I'm going to stick it onto that mirror board there, and so I just want to be sure that it stays put. And what I'm doing is I'm putting the big snowflake on the back, and again, this is all about balancing things up, so making sure, because I know I'm going to put some stuff on the front, every little bit that I put on the back just helps keep things balanced. So we're just making sure, that we don't put everything on the front or everything on the back, and that way it keeps it all nice and even, or reasonably even. And as I say, I just used the wet glue here, so I'm just using my little bone folder here just to pop down the little bits that were not quite stuck, just to make sure that they all stick down perfectly. And I think that's going to look really pretty. Then on the front, I want to take the Happy Christmas and the two baby snowflakes that we did, and I just want to stick those on the front. So again, just using my wet glue, and I'm literally just dotting a little bit here and there on the actual word, and just then going to stick that down. On the snowflakes themselves, what I'll do is I'll just put almost like a puddle of glue on that bit of scratch paper there, and just sort of wipe the snowflakes into that glue, and that way it will help them, it will get them covered in the glue, and then they'll stick down just fine and be much easier to do than trying to do every tiny little piece of that snowflake. So that's the last little snowflake going on, and I think so I'm just going to add some rhinestones, just randomly placing them across the acetate here. Now I've also put some into the center of the snowflakes, but you're not really going to see them until I just pop them over here onto the red, and I think then you can really get the benefit of it. And then I think that just one more will look really cool just in the center of our snowflake there, and I think that just finishes it off really well. Now we need to just start putting our snow globe together, so I'm using some of the red tape, and on one of the tabs at the top just adding a piece of the red tape, and then we're going to stick those two tabs together. These are the only tabs that we're going to glue together. The tabs at the bottom slide into each other. When you cut it out, you'll see there's two little grooves, and you'll just slide one into the other, and the reason for that is so that when you post it, you can post it flat. Now, so we're just going to take that red backing tape off. It's always a bit of a fiddle to get off. It's very sticky tape. That kind of is the point. Now, what I would suggest you do is just keep them both flat like that, and then line it up. Don't try and sort of do it up in the air, because you'll just never really get it even, and this way you can really stick it down well and make sure it's really firm and really straight, and I think that way you'll get a really good bond. So you can see by pressing that tab either flat at the back or forwards, it goes flat and it will sit in your envelope just fine. And then you can see here I've just put the two tabs together, and then it stands up perfectly. What I did notice was that if you put the tabs in one direction as opposed to another, just depending on how you decorated it. It sort of varied as whether it would stand up, so it is totally about the balance. But as you can see, it's standing up there fine. However, I still do want to add a little bit more to the front here, so let's just finish our decorating. So the next thing I want to do is add this lovely silk bow. I made that on my bow maker. It's actually a tattered lace bow maker, so it really makes a nice bow. So I just popped that down using some glue gel, and I think that looks really, really nice. And then I've got this cute little button, a red button, and I just threaded through it some white thread and bowed that up. And again, I'm just popping that on top of my little bow there using just some glue gel, and I think that looks really nice. And then the final thing I want to do is I just sprinkled some little silver stars. I sometimes find if you want to go random, if you just sprinkle them on, you get quite a good random effect, and I thought these stars were really cool. I know I'm pushing a couple around, but it was just to make them slightly more positioned where they'd gone under things. And then all I'll do is just take some wet glue, put a tiny little dot down, and then put the little star in position, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be stars, it can be anything you decide. And that is, once that's done, all the decoration I want on my little snow globe, and I think that looks so cute. So all we're doing now is we're just tucking that in. You can see I'm just tucking that into the little slot there, and then we'll stand it up like so. Now obviously the problem with that is you don't get to see it, so if I just tilt it for you, you get to see what it looks like. But isn't that effective? I think that looks so nice. And the beauty is that obviously if I hadn't have put the bow on, but you can see how it could easily go in a flat envelope. Now, since I had put the bow on, if you wanted to, you could seal that bottom piece up completely and send it in a box, and that way the person wouldn't even have to worry about putting it together themselves at the end. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this card being made. I hope you found it helpful to see how the snow globe's put together. I hope you like the finished result. If you want more details of precisely what I did, exactly what dies I've used, the sizes, etc., then just take a look at the details below the video or the link to the blog, which will have all the details and photos on as well. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye.